YouTube is Rhino Crossing, and today we are ranking 7 alligator videos today, only because I didn't make ranking when it came to around my 1 year anniversary on YouTube, only because I had a few other videos that I had in plan, so I was kind of busy around that, so I didn't get a chance to rank the alligator videos in July, so you know what I mean. Let's get into it, shall we? So for our first video we have Alonzo, but I'm kind of thinking to myself is that I'm not sure which ironcore I could only relate to him a little bit. I only had to go with Kid Core in the end, only because I kind of checked his interior and it looked very Kid Core-y, so I thought fine, I'll go with that. Only because I was kind of struggling to figure out what ironcore I could go for Alonzo, etc. So I had to go with Kid Core in the end. Well, for me, I'm not sure what I'm going to probably rank Alonzo, but I'm thinking maybe 7 out of 10, because he's not one of my favourites, but I think he's kind of popular to some of you, some of you who might have seen him back in New Leaf when he was wearing the Mario outfit, etc. You know what I mean? He might have been popular on those days, or he might have been introduced earlier, I don't know, but let's get to the next one, shall we? So for our next video we have Ali, who's a snooty video. Well, I couldn't really decide which ironcore I could go with for Ali, for example, only because it was kind of difficult at the same time which one I should probably go with. So I went with Desert Core, only because I feel like her actual aesthetic does fit the Desert Core vibe, and I know there's a few people now doing Desert Core irons due to 2.0 etc, which is quite fascinating. I think Desert Core might be one for most of us. I like how we can use the end game pathing to make it into a desert sort of theme, and you can have your own little oases etc. I'm thinking A could probably fit that theme in particular, I'll say. Well, I had to give her a 2 out of 10 because she's not one of my she's one of my least favourite alligators / crocodile videos, only because I think it's just her design that kind of puts me off a little bit. But for you guys, it might be a different opinion on her, to be honest. So let's get to the next one, shall we? So for our next video we have Boots, who's a drop video. Well, I did have him on my other arm, but I didn't have him for that long, only because I thought to myself is that sometimes when you get burnt out Animal Crossing, you think to yourself, which villager should I go villager hunting for next? Well, I didn't go villager hunting. I think I a Mimo card is somebody else into his place, you know what I mean? Sometimes that happens. You feel to yourself, well, you feel like you're getting a bit burnt out of having the same villager on your own for a while, and they would just mix up going villager hunting or just a Mimo card the actual villager you want on your own, or something like that. That's what I'd probably say on that bit, really. But I think he's aesthetic kind of fits Jungle Core more, because even though when I looked inside his house interior, it looked very farm core, even though he's technically not a farm core villager in my eyes. I think he's more of a Jungle Core villager in my opinion, only because I know that sometimes you have wild alligators hanging around the rivers in your Jungle Core island, and I think Boost would be a good example of that, don't you think? I had to give him a 9 out of 10 only because he's one of my favourite crocodile videos that I've had before. But I'm thinking to myself, if you guys are looking for Jungle Core videos, I recommend Boots, by the way, only because he's original alligator or crocodile etc that you might want to have on Jungle Core etc. So it depends on your opinion if you want to have Boots on your irons, who knows? So let's get to the next one, shall we? So for our next villager we have Gail, who's a cranky villager. Well, I think he's more like a robotic alligator and crocodile in particular, because he's the only robot alligator there is in the Crocodile Sword series in particular in Animal Crossing New Horizons. But I was really stuck upon what ironcore I should probably go for Dale, for example. It was pretty hard for me to decide, so I thought Golf Core fit in better because he looks creepy looking a little bit. So I'm thinking if he fits Golf Core, I'll go with it, okay? Well, I had to give him 1 out of 10 because he's one of my least popular crocodiles, alligators that I don't like very well, only because I think it's the design that kind of creeps me out a little bit. But for you guys, if you guys are big fans of Dale, then you could just give him a high, but if you're not, just give him a low. It kind of depends really. So let's see what our next feature is, eh? For our next villager, we have Draco, who's a lazy villager. Well, I'm thinking jungle core also fit him as well, but even though I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should have gone with 2 cores at the same time, like maybe Japanese core, maybe. It sort of depends on his sort of like, design really, but I haven't seen much of him on like, jungle core arms, even though he looks like a dragon, doesn't he? So maybe you could say Japanese core might fit him very well. It kind of depends on his kind of personality type, etc. But I'm thinking, even though it kind of looks Japanese inside his house interior, because it's like more with the Japanese and Zen cushions and all that stuff, that's all related to like, Japanese cores, so you could probably do that as well. So I think he'll fit both cores. But the thing is, I didn't know what I was going to probably rank him, but I'd give him an 8 out of 10 because I quite like his design. He looks pretty like, he looks very unique. He kind of stands out from most of the alligators and crocodile villagers that I could probably like, think of. And plus, I think he'd be suitable for like probably jungle core and probably Japanese core in particular. If you're looking for recommendations for both of those cores, I'll recommend Draco for you. So let's get to the next one, shall we? So for our next villager, we have Gail, who's a normal villager. Well, I'm thinking to myself, she'll probably fit fairy core more than kid core, only because her aesthetic looks very like, fairy core to me, only because she could have like, assembled a Valentine's Day villager if it was like, Valentine's Day at some point, you know what I mean? But I like the mixture of all the pinks that they've used for Gail's colour scheme, which I really like very much. So I'm thinking to myself, if you're thinking about doing like a fairy core island, and if you're looking for future recommendations for like, for your islands, then I'll recommend Gail for you. Only because Gail fits that sort of vibe, to be honest. So I'm pretty like, impressed about that. Well, I had to give her a 10 out of 10 because I feel like her design's like very like, it stands out. I just think if I was giving her a 10 out of 10 for a good reason, only because the design looks fantastic and amazing, and she's got all the aesthetic on her looks so good. So I'm thinking, yeah, I think a 10 out of 10 will just probably suit Gail very well, so that's what I'll probably say. But let's get to our last villager, shall we? So for our last villager, we have Sly. Well, Sly kind of gives me that sort of like, John Core vibe, only because he's wearing like a camo shirt and he looks like he's using like a few like camouflage prints to go with him as well, because he kind of fits the John Core aesthetic very well. So I'm thinking, if you guys are looking for a John Core villager, I'll recommend Sly straight away because I quite like his design very well and it kind of fits the vibe a lot as well, so I could say that as well. But the only thing I could probably like, tell you is sometimes you can't find him on villager hunts. So if you guys are looking for Sly, you might as well like, keep checking the island. If you do spot Sly, then you could just like, take him and bring him to your island if you're doing jungle core, etc. But sometimes you can't find him sometimes, so be careful for that, okay? I'm also giving him a 5 out of 10 because I quite like his design, but I think he's not really that popular at the moment. Every time I look on like, animalcrossingport.com, it never updates, but he's always in the least popular store category. So if he was more popular, I think that would be pretty good for him. But who knows? If he wants to be your jungle core villager, then I'll recommend him straight away. So that's what I'll probably say, really. I hope you guys will enjoy this ranking video today, but technically there were definitely like, 7 of them that I ranked. But if you guys definitely want to see my like, ranking 2.0 like, villagers that I might have done like probably now 7 months ago, then go and check that out. I might leave a link in the description for you so you can go and check that out, because sometimes when I'm like, ranking them, I have to keep them separate sometimes when it comes to 2.0 and actually the species of villagers, you know what I mean? So that's what I'll probably say, really. Make sure to leave a like on this video. If you're new to my channel and want to see more of my content, please subscribe. It's a variety of content you might enjoy. Might involve Animal Crossing content, Metopia content. Well, at the moment, I probably would do like, Metopia content soon, but I might do it tomorrow for you guys. So I might do like a new series on it, so who knows what happens around that sort of time, really. And also turn notifications so for Animal Crossing and Metopia content videos so I can stay by from Rainbow Crossing. I'll see you next month, so bye!